Hello. All right, this is take two. I just got done recording an hour-long diatribe in the photo booth app on my laptop, and the video corrupted, which is a fun feature that photo booth has, I guess. So I've collected myself, and I'm going to attempt to go through this again and be as genuine and passionate as I was in the first one. Anyway, so this is a slight pivot from what I was going to do for the relationship graph. Initially, I was going to make a short film including a bunch of different footage from the eclipse trip I took last year, various photos and I guess things I wrote throughout my journey thus far. But the editing process is taking way too long. So my hope is to have that. I was going to weave that project into this project. So I've had that video idea for years now. I just haven't finished it. I hadn't even started the editing process until this project. But it just didn't feel right. It was going to feel rushed. So my new hope is to release that just separately and not for a grade on April 8th of this year. So I'm super excited about that. It's opened up my creative passion that I have not activated in years. I do love creating art, and I think that's going to be a great outlet for me. But in lieu of that, I've pivoted to more of an AA style panel. I haven't done one of these for a while, unless you count the one that I just did for the last hour that didn't save. So besides that, I haven't done one for a while. But it basically goes through where I was, what happened, and where I am now. It's a deep dive into my relationship with alcohol, what I was using it for, what it did for me, and what it ultimately did to me, and where I'm at now in my path with it. So might as well just start at the beginning. I had my first drink when I was 15. Up until that point, I didn't realize, but in retrospect, I'm pretty sure I suffered from a form of depression and anxiety. I constantly lived in my head. Deep in my history is just a worry about what people think about me, what their perception is of me, and what my role is on this mortal coil. So when I was 15, I had my first drink pre-gaming for my first house party. I was in my friend's basement with like 6-7 other people, one of which was one of my best friends at the time, Austin, who I talked about a bit in my other graph, my loss history graph. He unfortunately passed away on April 8th of 2012, but at this time, back in November of 2005. He handed me a cup or a can of Coke in my friend's basement, told me to take a drink out of it so that he could pour in some Southern Comfort. So that was my first drink, and until the day I stopped drinking, whiskey Coke was one of my go-tos. It just transformed both the Coke and the whiskey to the point that they didn't taste like Coke or whiskey. It was something completely new. So I always enjoyed that for that. But that first drink made me feel physically warm. It made me lower my inhibitions. Pretty typical stuff, but it quieted that part of my mind, at least for a bit. That made me just constantly detrimentally introspective and worried about others' opinions of me. I drank sporadically the rest of high school, not often. Didn't go out of my way to drink, just whenever it was in front of me. Like, cool. I bought beer one time after I graduated high school. So I didn't even buy alcohol until I was 18. College, it was more just party central. It, as portrayed in various forms of media, like that's the typical college experience. You move away from home for the first time and you're out partying, and that's what I did. It seemed normal, except for the other time I talked about in my other timeline where I was using other substances, cannabis, Molly, to, I guess, numb myself and fill holes, which I didn't realize at the time. But the writing on the wall, the hints were there early on. I just was able to successfully shrug it off as this is typical. This is nothing out of the normal. Everyone else is doing it. Like, it's not a big deal. That mentality transferred over to my job within the restaurant industry. I started as a server, moved my way up to management and bar management. But it was commonplace to, go out after work and drink copious amounts, crash at someone's place, or just drink at someone's place and, get all the driving worries out of the way, not worry about hurting myself or others or getting a DUI. That turned into, throughout the years, I worked in the restaurant industry for about 10 years. I started getting comfortable drinking at work or before work. I wasn't the only one to do it, so that was my excuse. Like, this is normal. Like, plus I'm a better employee. I'm a better server when I drink. I'm more talkative. I'm more friendly. I connect more with people. That was my excuse. Same with any like social outing or romantic type encounter. Like, to this day, actually, I haven't initiated any new romantic relationship without the aid of alcohol. So that's kind of one of my current struggles, is finding my way in the dating game as a sober man. But I can get to that later. But it was my social lubricant. It didn't feel like it was a way of life or that it was hindering my existence at all. It was just normal. Like, sure, we partied more than other people, but that's just who I was. That's the circles I was in. It was no big deal. Like, my restaurant friends, my golf friends, whoever. Like, that's just what we did. But yeah, as a bar manager, obviously that got worse. I had more access and less eyes on me from above, that I could sneak alcohol easier. There's another flag, was the sneaking aspect. I thought I was getting away with something and that no one could notice. It was like a fun game to see how far I could push the boundaries without getting in trouble. I finally, after years of trying, got out of the restaurant industry. The next logical step was getting into the wine and liquor distribution industry. So I started entry level in that job. I was 28 at the time, and I was promoted to sales rep within a year. That was my ultimate goal in going to that company, was getting to be a sales rep, making more money. And all was good. Like, I was proud. I got promoted within a year of getting a new job. I seemed to be good at what I was doing. I was hitting numbers. But the case of samples that I would get every month, liquor bottles, wine bottles, that were meant to be for me to take to different accounts and taste people on it. Instead of doing that, those started to become my breakfast. And that's the first time I found that alcohol was starting to hinder my professional life. I was honest with my employer after a couple times of missing important order deadlines for my biggest accounts. And I told them, like, yeah, I think I have been drinking too much. That's what's been going on. They were understanding, got HR involved, and told me that I had by this date to prove that I was seeking help for alcohol addiction, or else I was no longer to work there. I wasn't ready for that, though. I didn't think I needed help. I didn't like that. It just didn't sit right with me, especially after going to Las Vegas in February of 2020. I had such a good time. Nothing bad happened. And I was like, I don't have a problem. Like, I can slow down. Like, this isn't me, it's them. And since I have this ultimatum, like, I guess I'll just not work there anymore. So my last day of that job was a week before COVID shut down. I had nothing lined up. My thought process was, I can land a restaurant gig, no problem, until I, get another big boy job. So that was an ill-fated plan after COVID shut down, and it became clear, like, what really was happening in the world. I spent a good chunk of that year, 4 or 5 months, just no job, playing video games, and drinking. It honestly wasn't a bad time in my life. I was living with one of my brothers and one of my best friends at the time, and we had 3 TVs set up in the living room. We played, and 3 Xboxes set up, and we played Call of Duty just all day with each other for months. It was great. But this is also where my drinking became more habitual, and COVID was the perfect backdrop for that. Like, only liquor stores and grocery stores, for the most part, were open during that time. And it seemed like everyone was drinking more out of boredom. And that's what I did too. I was like, great. See, I don't have a problem, is what I thought. Like, this is normal. I got so good at justifying what I was doing and why, and convincing myself and others that this isn't a problem. So I finally got my first job post-COVID. It went okay for a while. I was also working there with my roommate slash best friend. Eventually we started drinking towards the end of our shifts while we were there. It was not good. But part of that was steeped in COVID. So since we were roommates and coworkers, we both got COVID at the same time. And our bodies reacted to COVID the same. We both ultimately got something called parosmia, which is the distortion of taste and smell, as opposed to the loss of taste and smell. So after, getting to the heaviest I had ever been, like I had just turned 30, COVID shutdown had happened, I was up to 170 pounds. It was great. And then parosmia hit. The best way I can describe it is everything smelled and tasted like a burnt, rusty metal. This lasted for at least 6 months. But within the first 2 months, because I was barely eating became a chore, like something I didn't want to do and oftentimes couldn't physically do. I lost 20 pounds in the first 2 months. Scratch that. It was like 30 pounds. I was down to 140 after being up to 170. And I'm 6'3", so it was back to my skinny, lanky days. Except this time I was in the throes of a deep depression, because one of our major key ways of getting sustenance was now a chore. Something I loathed. It hit a breaking point where at lunch at work, I knew McDonald's was not going to taste good. In fact, fried foods, greasy foods tasted worse than other foods, even though those foods already tasted bad. But I was like, I am so fucking famished and hungry. Like, I don't care. Maybe today's the day. It'll be different. And I sat at work in my break room and took that first bite of a burger, and I burst into tears. I felt hopeless and helpless and I didn't know what to do. Then, also the big irony of all of this, of the parosmia, is that outside of water, the only thing that tasted and smelled normal was alcohol. So during this time of weight loss and malnourishment, I was drinking on an empty stomach and drinking to feel better in some way, or at least numb out. So I crashed out at that job, didn't get fired, got promoted actually, but it was tied to one of the worst times in my life. So when I got an offer for another entry-level job at a tech company, I said yes, met my new partner there. I got promoted within 6 months, but my drinking only got worse. Even after I started being able to eat again, like stuff started to taste normal, I drank more. And it came to a head after I got promoted. My first official meeting that I was going to lead the presentation on was the morning after my roommate's birthday. So for his birthday, we and a bunch of people from work and my partner also from work, we went to see a movie where we drank beforehand, we drank after. My partner brought a bunch of shooters for us two that we shared during the movie. So yeah, I woke up feeling awful that next day. I had a big bottle of tequila ready for me. So I had some hair of the dog and took a nap because I thought, all right, if I set 15 alarms and wake up, like I'll be good to go for this presentation. I woke up to very loud knocks at my door. I had slept through that presentation and through all the alarms and phone calls. I had like 20 missed calls. So work was worried about me. I wasn't answering. I hadn't showed up to that meeting. They just wanted to make sure I was okay. So they contacted my parents, who went to my apartment, and that's who greeted me in my hazy, drunken state. And I knew at that time I needed help. I don't think I had fully admitted to myself the severity of the issue. But I knew in that moment, like, if I wanted to keep my job, if I didn't want to get demoted or fired, like, I needed to take action. So from there, like, my parents called a detox. They took me to said detox, and I spent 6 days there. I thought that was rehab, naive little Kyle at the time. That was not rehab. That was merely medical withdrawal management, which I needed. And then after discharge, I denied their recommendation for a 30-day inpatient stay, instead opting for the IOP program that they offered. And it was fine. I graduated the 6-week program with flying colors. I felt great. It was like playing life on easy mode after I had been playing on the expert difficulty through my alcohol use disorder. And I was loving it. Like, there wasn't even a second thought. I had no interest in drinking until about 4 months of sobriety, which in my whole adult life, that was the longest sustained sobriety I had had, which, I don't know, 4 months doesn't seem like a lot in one context. So it was a little jarring to realize that, like, oh my God, like, my whole adult life, I haven't gone 4 months without the aid of some sort of substance, whether it be alcohol or weed or whatever. I still have my nicotine vice, my apologies. But yeah, then one day, after about 4 months, something happened with my on-again, off-again partner, and I decided that, hey, just for tonight, I can drink. I've been doing so good. Like, part of me has earned it. I don't feel good. I don't like the feelings that are happening right now, the emotions, the rejection. So I can just get back on the wagon tomorrow. That was the first of many times I said that. I didn't get back on the wagon. That was actually the first drink, the first night of drinking of a 5-month return to use. That was only separated by 1 week of sobriety, in which I went to a detox because physically I was ailing, and my job I was not doing great at. I wasn't showing up to everything, and I knew I needed to break the chain. So I went to a detox, denied the 30-day residential again at this other different detox, and an hour before I discharged, I knew what I was about to do. And then 20 minutes after I had discharged, I was at a liquor store. So I was back off to the races for the next 2.5 months. So to conclude that whole 5-month period, it was Christmas. I had 4 shooters laying around. I forgot that liquor stores didn't open on Christmas Day, but I didn't think much about like how bad my withdrawal symptoms might be. I thought those 4 shooters could last me through the day and I'd be fine. By this point, my family was well aware that I had relapsed. People just weren't saying anything. I think they felt afraid, wanted to maybe deny that it was happening, or they just felt helpless and unsure of what to do or say. So yeah, I left Christmas early. Usually I'd stay till like 9 p.m. or something at my grandma's house. But I left at like 5 or 6 because I was feeling awful and anxious and shaky. My aunt even asked as I hugged her on the way out why I was shaking so much. And I said, oh, because it's cold. Yeah, so that night I woke up at 1 in the morning feeling a way I had never felt before. There was an overwhelming sense of dread that was just visceral. Like when I woke up and I was laying there, it felt like my body was sinking into the earth, like I was being engulfed. So I spent a couple hours pacing, turning the light on to try and help, laying down with the light on, laying down in the other room on my recliner chair. But nothing would help. And throughout this whole 2-hour period, I just kept thinking, like, if I do manage to fall back asleep, I don't know if I will wake up. So, yeah, in between praying to a God I didn't believe in, pleading, saying, like, if I make it through this night, like, I swear I will get better and I will stop drinking. I just need to survive tonight. So between that, I was weighing my options of calling 911 or calling my parents to come pick me up or waking up my roommate to take me to the hospital. I finally decided and remembered that I lived 2 blocks away from an ER. So I just got myself there. My vitals were awful. My heart rate was through the roof. I think over 160. Blood pressure was awful. The doctor told me, like, after they pumped me full of fluids and benzos to help with the withdrawal symptoms, he was like, hey, so we are going to discharge you. You need to get into treatment. And until you do, and this is going to sound weird coming from a doctor, but you cannot quit cold turkey. So to me, that was a bit of an out. Like, I knew I needed to talk to work. I knew that a more intense treatment was imminent. But there was still a sliver of hope in me when I got to the liquor store later that day and started drinking again. Like, I started feeling normal-ish. But that I was latching onto this hope of, like, no, like, work doesn't need to know about this. My family doesn't need to know about this. Like, I bet I could just get back to what I was doing and drink just enough to function and not get fired. One more blackout and a close encounter with cops because of an ex who kicked me out of her apartment. That squashed any of that hope I was holding on to. Hope that I could go back to normal without going to treatment. That was squashed. So within a few days, I found myself at the parking lot of my third detox / the site of my first ever 30-day inpatient recovery center, which, of course, I slammed shooters in the parking lot because it's like, well, this will be my last drink, so might as well, right? Yeah, I think like every detox I went to, I did that, minus a couple, but like every time I blew over like a 0.3 something, which shocked me. Like every time, like one of the nurses one time was like, does that seem high to you? And I was like, yeah, like I feel normal, which I guess is a telltale sign of severe alcohol use disorder. But so I got admitted after that 5-month bender and a hospital stay. I, as part of intake, they took a picture. I'll try and add this if I have time to an edit here, just of my intake picture, which showed me disheveled. People have said I looked homeless in that picture, which realistically, I was basically an unhoused person, like the stereotype of a homeless hobo, if you will. I just had an apartment still and a job. I was way closer to being on the streets than I realized. But I was disheveled. I was emaciated. I weighed 129 pounds, which again, I'm 6'3". I was knocking on death's door, like, because I was constantly nauseous. I was not eating. The only thing that made the nausea go away was drinking. And then when I drank, I didn't want to eat. So yeah, it was really good cycle for my health. But that first inpatient treatment, month-long treatment, was amazing. It felt like a game changer. I surrendered in a way I hadn't before. I was ready to make a change. And in that month, like, I gained 20 pounds. Like, I was eating, I was getting seconds. It was amazing. Like, I felt so good. I felt a way I had not felt in maybe years. And there was no doubt in my mind that once I left that place, I was going to come back and just thrive. And I did. I did for about a month. I was sticking with my IOP, a new one this time. I was going to work and succeeding again. I think I was anyway. Felt like it. And I was working out at 5 a.m. every day, almost every day, with my best friend. Then, yet again, something happened a month after leaving rehab. Again, it was relationship related. And because of my codependency tendencies, I convinced myself that I could numb those feelings out during a fight or a breakup or a potential breakup, and that I could just drink for one night. And since I've been doing so good, I look good, I feel good, like, I'll be fine just for today. I can drink. This time, within 2 weeks, I lost my job, the best job I had ever had, highest paying job I had ever had. I lost my partner. That was the final time she broke up with me. And that was enough to strip me of my identity, since I had steeped my identity so firmly in my career and my romantic relationship. Now that those were gone, and on top of feeling guilty and shameful about returning to alcohol, I got a clinical case of the fuckets. So I drank. I drank for 2 months. I had virtual interviews for jobs while drunk during that 2 months. Unsuccessfully. Unsurprisingly unsuccessful. But yeah, I lived that for 2 months until it hit another breaking point where I thought I could just detox on my own during a car ride, a road trip to Kansas, Iowa, one of the two, for a family reunion. That was not true. I felt absolutely fucking miserable. It was me and my mom and my two youngest siblings, who were 16 and 18 at the time. They were in the car. And within 2 hours of starting our like 10 to 12 hour journey, I was like, I am so sorry, Mom. But we either have to go to a liquor store or I have to go to the hospital because I'm starting to go into withdrawal. So I was glad I was honest. I felt the shame again, but it felt a bit of a relief. So I went to the hospital. They got me on a benzo taper so I could finish that road trip, be with family for that reunion, and then when I got back, be in rehab again on Monday. Different rehab, new setting, new mental goals. I wanted to approach it differently, and I did. I made it through. I got a sponsor. I felt less like I was on that pink cloud and more like I was determined to be done and be different. And again, I surrendered. I didn't want to move into sober living, but I did. I did do that. I drove for Lyft for a few months while I tried to get various jobs. That was a frustrating process. Didn't get anything. And in that time, I applied and interviewed and got accepted to the graduate counseling program at CU Denver. That felt amazing. I had a lot going for me. But I went on a trip to California with my sponsor to check out his home group. And the whole time something felt off. And I didn't address it, and I didn't talk to my sponsor or anyone else about it. And the night we got back, it was the surprise birthday party for my grandma's 80th birthday. And it was a great time. I got to see a bunch of family, extended family we haven't seen in a while. But when I left that party, I succumbed to something I had been ignoring, that nagging longing to go to the liquor store. Yeah, I drank for a week or two, detoxed on my own. And at this point, I wasn't at sober living anymore, so that wasn't an issue. But yeah, that didn't last long. It was white knuckling. And I relapsed one more time around the beginning of November of 2023. Within 5 days of that final relapse, I had exhausted all of my money, all of my savings, the 401k that I had pulled out. All of that was gone. All of my credit cards were maxed out. I was out of money. I couldn't drive for Lyft because I had been drinking. I wasn't sober. I was out of alcohol. I felt withdrawal coming on. It was imminent. And I did something that out of desperation. Like, I knew in the moment it was illogical. But I took rubbing alcohol, which I knew. Again, I knew that rubbing alcohol does not metabolize the same as drinking alcohol. I knew it would not have the effect of, making me drunk. I didn't even want that. I thought maybe, just maybe, that if I dilute this rubbing alcohol and take a couple shots of it, that it would free me of the withdrawal symptoms, at least for a bit, and I could kick the can down the road. That didn't happen. It accelerated my path back to rehab, in fact. First time I, in this whole process, called 911. I felt that because I started puking. I started seeing like tunnel vision, and everything was black and white. I could no longer see color. And that was all on top of the immense anxiety and shakes and nausea. It was bad. I felt like, I was dying. So after a few days in the ER, that acted as my detox, and I went to my third and final rehab of 2023. So, again, I approached it differently. And I knew something had to give. I was at a fork in the road yet again. And my choice here was I can continue down this road where I die a slow, agonizing, and lonely death while drinking, or I just do whatever it fucking takes to not go down that road. And I leveraged, like, I had planted seeds throughout 2023 of things I can be hopeful about for my future. One of that being school, one of that being future jobs, future relationships, but most of all, like, a future relationship with myself where I can genuinely love myself and recognize that I am enough. And, I still struggle with that. I think that's part of the lifelong struggle as a human. But, like, in that moment, I was able to leverage that, and those seeds that I had planted started to bud, and I felt something different. There was a fire lit under my ass, and I left that third rehab, like, so focused. And I haven't looked back, and that's kind of minimizing the last 15 months. It has not been without its issues. I haven't turned to drinking, which is awesome. But, like, I had a tonic-clonic seizure, a grand mal seizure, after I had left rehab, because turns out I have an underlying epilepsy. So I learned that. I couldn't drive for 3 months. That was difficult. The adjustment to school was difficult. The adjustment to a new job was difficult. But you know what? I started to have what you would call normal people problems again. It was no longer a day-to-day life or death fight. Deciding whether I was going to hit the easy button and go to the liquor store or seek help. Like, that was a daily routine when I was in active use. So, yeah, I still struggle with AA. I still struggle with the steps and my sponsor, and I struggle with existential dread and what the meaning of all this is. But I've been able to look at it differently and find the beauty in it. In that, individually, we can create our own meaning and purpose, as long, I believe, as it doesn't actively hurt other people or those around you, or I guess even inactively. That's just like a high level of my, I guess, life philosophy now. But and like, I've been able to work through the underlying issues through therapy and through working with a psychologist and my general, my what's it called? My doctor. I forget the term, but my normal doctor. Like I have a team behind me now, and like I just got diagnosed with ADHD. Not something that, I don't know, it's weird. I'm celebrating it because it's something I can now work on, as I have been struggling with tasks both at work and school and in life, and this is potentially an answer to what's been going on. But I wouldn't have realized any of this if I wasn't sober. So that's where I'm at now. I'm 4 semesters into a graduate program. Never thought I'd go back to school. Never thought I would even be accepted to a graduate program. But I'm chasing something I'm passionate about, and something that I believe will, in the long run, bring me purpose and meaning and satisfaction with what I bring to this existence. And I was not on the path for that, less than 2 years ago. I had started my journey, yes, towards recovery, but I don't know, a lot has happened in this 2 years, and I am supremely proud about it. And it's not lost on me that the difficulties will continue, but I just need to keep practicing and harnessing the tools that I have, that I've gained along the way, and continue finding new tools. I'm excited. For the first time in a long time, I feel unimpeded in my hope about what the future brings. And life isn't perfect. I'm filming this in my mom's basement. I'm working part-time. I'm not in a place that's considered, I guess, financially stable. I'm still picking up a lot of the pieces from the destruction that was my severe alcohol use disorder. But there's a silver lining to it all, and there's hope that I will reach where I need to reach. So that's my journey, my relationship with alcohol. Thank you.